Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships. Is trying out something different, maybe for a week or so, or just no intro at the start of the video. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below if you do or don't like the change. So we're just basically getting right into the action. So today, Friday highlight with the newer Tier 10 light cruiser, Dutch cruiser, the Utrecht. And I haven't had a ton of time to play it this week. So I've been playing it this morning, early afternoon, and I gotta say, my opinion is the ship's a bit strong. It's like after each battle I played, I think the first one I didn't do too well, but I improved almost like every game by 50,000 damage, and this one being the highest of the four that I at least have done today. And the ship to me feels really comfortable to play. It feels somewhat similar to the D7 Provincian, but of course there's multiple differences. But I've played a lot of that ship in operations with the airstrikes and things like that, so I have felt pretty comfortable with the ship. The big thing with this boat, though, is it's a light cruiser, right? So the first game I went in, I didn't have priority target mounted or like incoming fire alert, and that screwed me. Because of the light cruiser lifestyle, you know, you're probably going to want to have either incoming fire alert or priority target. And for me, priority target has been really great to have. So let me back up just a little bit here. And, you know, with the Friday highlight, I just want to highlight, you know, the ship's consumables, the strength, the weaknesses of the boat, so on and so forth. So what I noticed is that this ship it has really good guns. You know, there's a part of me that you have this engine boost that's 8%, and maybe I'd like for a 15% engine boost or something. But, you know, if I had to choose between engine boost and guns, I would choose to have better guns. So what you have here is a boat that has 10 128mm guns that pin 32mm. Yeah, so that means you're going to pin a lot of what you see at the higher tier, and that's, you know, not even taking the inertia fuse, high explosive shells. So your high explosive DPM is the 13th, or technically 11th, because there's some black versions of various ships, and your AP damage per minute is the 6th best or 5th best in the game, because you have Smolensk and Smolensk B. So like here's an example, you know, so the Santander, we pin him everywhere with our high explosive because we pin 32mm, right? But he decides to go broadside. And what's really great about these guns is actually it's the shell travel time. It doesn't take very long for the shells to travel. I think it was 960 meters a second. And you can see, you know, you don't have these really lofty high arcs. Like the shells are much more, I don't know, somewhat reminds me of something more similar to Hindenburg, to be honest. So it means that you can comfortably shoot at targets that are longer range away and have confidence that your shells are going to land. And I have to apologize to Buffalo because I was trying to avoid the Minnesota salvo. So the guns on Utrecht are great. You know, you have 10 128mm guns, and when you build for the reload, you are rocking the 4-second reload. It's technically 3.96. Of course, you could drop it down further with top grade gunner, but I don't recommend that route here on Utrecht, because ideally you want to play outside of your concealment, because you have airstrikes, right? So we got one strike off on the Santander earlier. We're going to get even more airstrikes off this game. And also having the unique commander, legendary commander, Conrad Helfrich, which I'll talk more about tomorrow in the upgrading commander build video. You know, so here's a Minotaur. We easily pin him most everywhere on his ship, right? So we're just going to shoot at him. Our airstrikes, which are 14-kilometer range, they reload really fast when you build for it. It's a 30.6-second reload. So, you know, I know this Minotaur player wants to slow down into smoke, right? So there's 4 pins. We're going to drop another airstrike on him. In these bombs alone, they penetrate 34mm. So you get a pretty deadly combination of between the 128mm guns and your bombs that you're pinning 32mm threshold and higher. So there are going to be more tanky battleships and cruisers where you're not going to pin their deck. But it's really about the fire chance that you're setting fires between your bombs and your high explosive main battery guns. Like, that's really what it's all about. And it's incredibly good for this ship. So let me talk briefly about the playstyle, and then I'll talk more specifics on the boat. So the playstyle really is you want to play around islands as much as possible. This boat becomes much more overpowered if you're divisioning up, let's say, with a friend or clanmate who's taking a destroyer and who's dropping smokes for you. The ship can become a little bit limited when you're playing, like if you're playing Ocean. That kind of sucks for you as Utrecht, but it's a pretty rare map. It doesn't drop very often, even though it's the most historically accurate map in the whole game. But you don't really want to be caught out in the open if you can help it, right? Otherwise, it's a bit more of a painful experience. So you want to be using smokes. You want to be using islands as much as possible, whether to break contact or just to farm. Like, we're going to farm this Minnesota for a lot of damage, and then we're going to deal in and go with the Cleveland. Like, it's kind of funny, like, when I was challenging cruisers, like, we challenged the Santander, we've challenged the Minotaur, we go for the Cleveland, like, I kind of feel rather confident going up against, like, those cruisers. One thing, of course, is they're going to be firing maybe some high armor piercing, like the Minotaur and Santander, of course. But you're like, I'm not really scared of you, So that's pretty great. I mean, you have destroyers in the game like Elbing. I had an Elbing harassing me at longer range, and then I really have to be mindful of angling, so on and so forth. But with the high tier lifestyle of a light cruiser, the biggest thing you have to be worried about or concerned with is the overmatch in the game ultimately. That's really your biggest weakness, so to speak. So you want to be utilizing your engine boost, which is a 2-minute engine boost, only 8%, as much as possible, or utilizing islands. So the play style is, I've tried to play this boat in the middle a little bit, and it was definitely difficult if you don't have priority target or incoming fire alert, because I just had my team losing a flank or both flanks, and then it's like, well, it's great because you're trying to put yourself in this position where you're utilizing your 14-kilometer airstrike, right? So you don't want to be, it's not a sniper cruiser, it's a mid cruiser. So let's say you're playing around, you could play, I usually say mid-range at high tier is 12 to 15, but you can get a little bit closer. You're going to see me get a little closer on this Minnesota later, where you can play with our conceal, which is 9.8. And there's going to be some destroyers that rush us later on, etc., etc., etc. So what you get is a pretty powerful boat. If you don't like, if you struggle playing light cruisers, Utrecht is probably definitely not for you, because it does require awareness of what's happening around you, trying to utilize islands. Like, it has this, Utrecht is kind of this passive-aggressive cruiser. Like, you have to know when to be aggressive and when to be passive, and it's very rewarding if you can distinguish between the two. Like here, it's like I don't even have to worry about switching to armor piercing. Like, he's going broadside now, but I pinned 32mm, so it's really not going to be an issue. I mean, you see 42 penetrations out of 2 non-pins, so I don't know where the non-pins landed. And I turned my AA off because I didn't want Minnesota to be dropping ASW strikes and trying to figure out where exactly I am. As you can see, as I'm about to go into more specifics on the ship, our team's kind of basically falling apart and we have no map control. But we're going to be doing as much as we possibly can as we're going to go run onto Alpha. So the other thing with this cruiser is, like, if you can take out the destroyer on your flank, like I have a clip from earlier where I went in with a destroyer and I killed a DD on the flank, and kind of opened things up for him, and then with his spotting was helping out a lot. But also the enemy team there was another destroyer and he wasn't spotting on that flank, he was playing behind an island. So then that opens up a lot of opportunities for us to farm quite freely. We don't have to worry about the spotting, right? So it's just, all in all, it's a really great light cruiser. But again, if you are a very aggressive cruiser player, you don't like having to play passively at times and utilizing islands in that, then the ship's not going to be for you. On the other hand, I see players play this ship and all they do is they sit right behind an island and they never fire the guns. They're just playing with the airstrikes, and it's kind of like, you know, why? Like, just go take a carrier or something like that, or maybe play Trump. I don't know. So that's kind of a depressing lifestyle with the boat, because it's really a deadly combination of utilizing these guns at pin 32 and your bombs that pin 34, that ultimately you're going for fires and you're farming a lot of fire damage. So with the high explosive shells, without taking any type of thing that will improve the fire chance, your high explosive shells have a 7% fire chance, which, if I remember correctly with Conrad, and then if I take the 2 fire combat signals, we can do 9.5% with the high explosive shells, which is really good. And also the fact that your airstrikes, you know, it's such a small radius, right? Like you see there on the screen, you have a 35% fire chance with these. And then let's see, how many bombs are there? I'm trying to remember. Is it not telling me? Oh, bombs per plane is 5, and you have 7 planes per attack. So 7 times 5, 35. Yeah. So you have 35 bombs in that little square. You know, here what you're going to see is that our back's going to be kind of against the wall, and we're actually going to do all right for ourselves here, despite this being a very gloomy situation, as I'm really trying to carry here. Your armor piercing, you pin 21mm, so like destroyers like Ragnar with 25, like you'll get full pins with your armor piercing. But I mean, honestly, when you have 32mm, like you can shoot, you know, was it Hoffman or like Ragnar, Havarosk, you know, the destroyers that have the 25mm plating, and I'm trying to remember which ones do and which ones don't. Like you could just keep firing your high explosive, and you'll do just fine for yourself ultimately, right? So you don't have to be as conscious if you get some destroyer that goes broadside to you in a light cruiser, and let's say you don't pin that 25mm, or you don't get the pins, then it's like, oh, then I have to switch to armor piercing. It's like, no, it's quite comfortable just to play with the high explosive because you pin the 32mm. So we get 2 high explosive airstrikes that do the 14km range. You can get up to 3 if you get one of the talents activated on Conrad, which again I'll show tomorrow, which is really helpful when then you talk about your adrenaline rush. Then you're going to have these reloading even faster than just the 30.6 seconds that they're already at. You have a standard damage control party. The repair parties are actually really great. So they have a 40-second cooldown time. If you take November Foxtrot, then I think you drop it down to 38, which is awesome. So that means, you know, it's not a special heal besides the fact it has a really short cooldown time. But when you find yourself in a pinch, you know, like we're having to deal with these the Black, the Groningen, and then we're going to be dealing with the Genon here. Like it means that we have the ability to stay in the fight a lot longer versus having like a heal. Let's say it's a 60-second or it's a 120 or not 80-second cooldown time, right? So it's actually pretty comfortable to have, all said and done. And then, like the engine boost, I said it's an 8% engine boost, and yeah, not a whole lot to write home about there with the engine boost, but like we want to use it here, even though we're reversing, because what you do is on the 4 slot you take the Airstrike mod 1. You're not taking propulsion, which kind of sucks. So you do really have to be mindful if there are ships that can easily overmatch your armor firing at you, and just take into account that you're not going to be accelerating very fast, so on and so forth. So kind of getting back into the game here. So what I want to do here is reverse, because I'm pretty sure the Minnesota is going to circle around the front right side of this island. So I want to be able to reverse far enough where I can just accelerate and go left of the island. Like it's a 50-50 chance that I could get it wrong. I could use a airstrike and just see where his AA is, but I end up not. And I'm trying to really get this Jaeger and helping the Yorktown out because the game's winnable. We already have over 200,000 damage, but the enemy team is 40 points away from the win. So this is basically a kill all, and I can't afford to die here either. So I do have to live. So it means I can't take any unnecessary risk if I can help it, and ultimately to get the win for the team. So the Yorktown takes out Jaeger, which is great. Jaeger has crap AA. We're still going to be dropping wildly here on the Genon, and I was a little annoyed because I tried to do a drop there and it didn't work. And ultimately, I should have kept this airstrike that I use blindly, because I could have dropped two. I could have used it here on Minnesota to get the kill. So that was my mistake. It may have cost us the game. The fact that I used that airstrike on Genon when I should have held it to have two here on Minnesota. But it would have meant that I would have had to try to push and go for the Genon as soon as possible, because again, the points are just so close to 1,000 points here. So really close to the kill, over 7,700 hit points there. You know, Minnesota is a really great ship for us to be dropping the airstrikes on, right? It's big, it's wide, but I mean, it does have a built-in propulsion, so that's really the only thing that we have to be mindful of. And I kept trying to click there and it wasn't working, so I don't know why my airstrikes weren't like activating instantly. So it's good enough for a second proficiency just because there's defeat. Not as much base XP, so that's Confederate, High Caliber, and Dreadnought, ironically enough. So 210,000 damage with 4 kills, really close to getting the Kraken, but unfortunately it didn't happen. 1 solo cap, 14 incapacitations. You will get incapacitations on the ships you're firing if you're knocking out torps. You're wrecking DDs with your 128mm guns. So over 2,000 base XP despite the loss. Like, we had the best base XP. The Groningen had 2,045. We took 61,000 damage, all said and done. Potential damage was 1.2, so this isn't a potential damage boat, right? But the fires were 19,000, the airstrikes were 62,000, and main battery was 129,000. So this boat's really meant to, utilize your main battery as much as possible and utilize your airstrikes as much as possible. So it's just a good combination. So again, I don't understand Utrecht players who just sit right behind an island and then never fire their main battery guns. They just play like they're a carrier. So it's a bit strange, so I don't understand. The one thing you do have to keep in mind with this boat is that players don't like you. They were hardcore focused you down. Like, there was the first game I had, I was dropping some airstrikes on a Des Moines. And then he got so annoyed with me that he basically threw his ship away to get me killed. So it is a cancerous cruiser. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I like playing Des Moines, Salem, you know, the type of cruisers you sit up on an island, bow in, and then you just get tortured by this thing. Like, I don't know why Wargaming keeps introducing more ships with more airstrikes in the game. That they continue to make the game meta more and more and more passive, because like, you get punished for pushing in on key objectives when you have boats like these that just, you know, crap on you when you're trying to maybe support your destroyers and you're in a cruiser, or if you're a battleship and you've slowed down, you know, this, that, and the other. Ultimately, I don't think it's good for the game to keep having more and more Dutch cruisers with more Dutch airstrikes. I really don't know what Wargaming's thinking with that, but it's another type of gimmick for them to sell in the game, maybe because they're running out of ideas, so to speak. So, with that being said, tomorrow I'll do an upgrade commander build video on the Utrecht. We'll go through the upgrades, so talk about the modules that you do have, consumables, combat signals, armament, and the commander, of course, itself. And it works really good with the recent legendary commander that came out, because I run him on this boat as well as the Prins van Oranje. So if you liked his video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you're subscribed, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. Until next time, take care.